Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Behind the Replay, where we talk about sports that Noah enjoys, sports that you might enjoy. Why is it called Behind the Replay? I am a replay operator, which means this is my life. What does that even mean? It means live editing on television, baby. That's what I do for a job. I've got a little remote control called an EVS LSM remote. I go backwards in time and then I play it out at the speed that you want. So when there's a try and you want to see it again from all the different angles, that's me. There is a whole team of us behind the replay doing behind the replay things to bring you the replays. So why did I decide to do a sport podcast? Because I'm going crazy not talking to anyone about the stuff that I want to talk about. So I just decided, you know what? Maybe I'll just talk to myself about it in my room. Welcome to my room. Yes, the background is a little bit meh. Yes, this is my room, which is also a little bit meh. But when you're only thinking about sport, you don't have time to think about interior design. But what I do have time to think about is what we're talking about this week, which is some very exciting things. We are getting to the business end, baby, of the NRL Premiership season. We are getting to the playoffs. We have one more week, so I'm going to go through what the consequences of this week are going to look like for the potential playoff picture, and then we're going to talk about what's on the line for potentially the most important round of the Rugby Championship in my memory, coming up this weekend. So it's a very exciting, got a lot of things to talk about. Every single week when I'm doing this podcast, this is the third week now, I have tried to make something slightly better, whether it's editing, whether it's things, but I have brought something to the table which is truly unmatched, and that is preparation. Yes, I have actually done my research. I have actually gone through, so it's not just brain thoughts about what I want to talk about. I've actually structured this, so hopefully we can keep it to a structure. Let's see how it goes. Maybe next week we'll get an upgraded studio when we overtake the JRE on YouTube, baby. Yes, it's coming. Behind the Replay, the movement, join it. Maybe not. Anyway, so here we go. The NRL playoffs. Wow, what a season it's been. I think maybe just start there. It's been a fantastic season. Rugby league at the moment is really actually at the level that it was in the mid-2010s, which I personally think was the best time for quality. Maybe not for the popularity of the sport, but it's awesome. It's every single team has been good, apart from maybe a couple that you'd say. But every game, someone can upset someone, which means that with it coming to an end, the top 8 needs to be decided. And there's a couple of very consequential games this week that are going on. I'm just going to read out the NRL ladder, I think, before we go into next week's competition. So it's next week. So the ladder currently is Raiders 1, Storm 2, Bulldogs 3, which means 2 and 3 are definite. Raiders have won the minor premiership, so they are definitely playing 4th position. Now, 4th position is where it gets interesting because the Broncos, the Sharks, and the Warriors are all there. And 4, 5, 6, all on the same amount of wins. So every single game that those teams play this weekend are consequential in some way. The Panthers and then are most definitely going to be 7th unless they really screw up this weekend, but they cannot miss the playoffs. Who can miss the playoffs are the Roosters, and who can overtake them are the Dolphins at that 8-9 spot. So that is currently the table. I didn't really explain that. I was kind of explaining the thing. But this is what the potential matchups are going to be. So I'm going to go through that in the first round and say where... I'm just going to talk and it's going to make sense. How about that? Instead of me trying to over-explain. Sweet. So we're going to start with the potential of 1 versus 4, which I'm expecting to be the Raiders versus the Sharks. That's what I'm expecting, but we'll go through every single one. So with the Raiders versus the Sharks face the Bulldogs this weekend. They've won 7 of their last 8. They're in hot form, and they played the Dogs in round 4. The Dogs won. It was completely different, though, because the Dogs were in that 8-0 stretch. But the Sharks at the moment are really hot form, and I also think that because the Dogs have locked up 3, they'll probably be resting a lot of players. And also the Dogs played a Panthers side last week and looked crap against their B team. So I think the Sharks will win, and it's at a core stadium, I believe. So with the Sharks winning, that will put them up to 4, because the Broncos, who are in the real prime spot, they're facing the Storm at Amy Park. That is going to be a really big game on Thursday. Sorry, it's not at Amy Park, it's at Suncorp. The Storm will most likely be resting players, but the fate is really in the Broncos' hands this week. The Broncos all season have kind of been that team that is really good one week, really bad the next. They lost, last time they faced the Storm, actually, they lost Mam and Reynolds, and Cobbo. Mam and Reynolds in one player, and then Cobbo, who I am actually not sure about his injury at the moment, but I didn't see him last week. I did the Cowboys versus Broncos game, which was last week for replays. And Reece Walsh was really good when he was not drinking toilet water. I don't know if you guys saw that story this morning. Really strange. He got a new toilet installed in his house, and he goes up and just drinks the water out of it. And he says it's good for recovery. Really, yeah. NRL players just have a strange sense of humor. I guess if you've been bashed up since the age of 4, you kind of would. But yeah. So the Broncos anyway. That Reece Walsh is looking like he's getting to that point of he is going to take this team to that top 4 promised land, but whether he can actually do it is another question, because every single week he seems to be very good, but he's been doing it against really crap teams. No offense to the Cowboys, but they had the Knights the week before that. Smashed them, but the Storm is a way different story. The Storm coming off a 40-point second half loss to the Roosters is a different story. The Storm with a Jerome Hughes coming back from injury is a different story. I think that the Storm win this, because there have been so many times where I've seen the Storm just bounce back. I know Craig Bellamy would have given them an absolute rooting at training this week. And the Broncos, I mean, man, when Payne Haas is looking like that, like he did last week, just absolutely rummaging it up down the middle of the field, and you know, when the Broncos are on, they're on. When they're off, they're off, and I expect them to be off. To be honest, I don't think that they can do it. I'll put it this way: I think it's a much more likely scenario that the Sharks win against the Dogs than it is for the Storm to win against the Broncos. Now, but the next one is the Warriors. Up the Waz, baby. Up the Waz. We also have a chance of getting to that top 4 position. What needs to happen is the Broncos need to lose against the Storm, and the Sharks need to lose against the Dogs as well. But we need to win against Manly, who are playing on Friday, 6 p.m. Australia time, so that would be 8 p.m. Auckland time. And yeah, that is going to be a big game for us as well. I don't have terribly high expectations because our attack's really bad, man. When you have Tanner Boyd being the 7, and he's done a great job for us. I don't want to hate on Tanner Boyd, but we just know his ceiling. He was on the Gold Coast Titans for 4 years there, and they went nowhere. And when he's just 7, it's hard, man. Metcalf is the biggest loss of the season. Barnett also huge loss, but I think Metcalf, I think I said it last week, I'm gonna say it again. You take any team and you lose that bit, you're 7, maybe apart from Melbourne, because they've been looking pretty good apart from last week, but with so many stars around. But if you take your 7 out, that's the most important position in rugby league. It's essentially the quarterback. So yeah, with Metcalf, the last time we played them was round 2, 36-16 to the Wars, but it was the Metcalf masterclass. He was awesome. It was the one where he did that at the end of the game, and it was just sick. And that was when we all believed that it was our year, which it still could be, but I think we're building for next year for the Warriors. I love what we've been doing. I love our coach. I love our game plan and how simple it is. But when we get into those positions on the field where we need to strike, we can't strike. You watch Melbourne, you watch the Raiders, you watch what these teams are doing who are really in the top 4, and every single play they've got a set move. You know, the Warriors are a lot of one out, take it wide. Nothing's going on there. Offload. Maybe we score. Maybe we don't. You know, we don't really have that game-breaking. Apart from Halasima, we don't have that game-breaking player who's just going through the line. And so I think our attack is our biggest weakness. I think also our defense last week against the Eels. To be fair, I thought the 2 first tries, which were runaways, which ended up deciding the game for the scoreline, I think that was also just unlucky. And I think also the Eels are in really good form. So maybe. But it's going to be DC's last game in Manly. You would have to think they'd try to get up for that. Manly as well have been kind of putting on they can't make the playoffs, Manly. So they are out of point differential unless the Roosters lose by like 60 and Manly win by 50, which I don't think is going to happen. They can, and the Dolphins as well. Manly can't actually make it. So will be interesting to see what kind of happens there. Also, just wanted to quickly touch on the call last week between this isn't in my notes. This is just something that I thought of about that no try at the end. It was probably a no try. as much as it hurts me, he definitely touched it. My question is, why does it take the bunker so long to see it, man? If you're what we do in EVS, we can tell that anyone can tell that in the first 2 minutes, but they go to the wrong endpoint and they just take so long to get to the right action. I don't blame people for not being able to see it because it's they go back to this and then it's this and then it's this. For the people on Spotify, I'm doing very slow movement frame by frame, and then they go past the bit really quick and you can't see it. But I do think NRL really needs to look into the rule of now it's kind of if it touches you and then it goes into your into an opponent's player, it's instantly a knock on, which they've been calling all year, so you can't really get mad at it. I think it's dumb because he's obviously not knocked that forward. He's obviously knocked that backwards. He's facing his own goal line, which is the rule, and he's knocked that back into the player, and then it goes forward into the Eels player. So he did say in the post-game interview with Sky that he had knocked it on. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Also, you can't really blame one incident, which I don't think Webster will allow them to do, because our attack was piss poor. We were quite piss poor during that performance, if I'm being honest. And the Warriors are just always... It's always a roller coaster, and, I mean, keep the faith, but... Yeah, I mean, my blood pressure is going to go down when they are knocked out of the playoffs. So, we have my top 4 predictions. Also, keep in mind, I've been really bad with tipping this year, so I wouldn't take too much out of it. But here's my top 8. So, I think it will be Raiders, number 1. Got that one right. Storm, 2nd. Bulldogs, 3rd. Sharks, 4th. Broncos, 5th. Warriors 6th, Panthers 7th, and Roosters 8th. So the Roosters face the Rabbitohs at home is Sydney. And they should win that because the Chooks are looking good. The Chooks are looking really, really good. Mark Nawaqanitawase, nailed it, is going to be the Australian winger. He's been that good. If you've missed what Mark's been doing in the past 2 weeks, he is, 4 tries against Melbourne, set up freakish ones the week before. He is the form winger of the competition at the moment. And the Dolphins, you would think, oh, well, who are they playing this week? Maybe they can sneak in. They play the Raiders. So, kind of, the points differential on the Dolphins and the Raiders is only 15. So, if the Roosters lose to the Rabbitohs and the Dolphins manage to put around 10 points, then the Dolphins go through. So, it's actually quite thin margins, but I just think you would have to think that the Raiders would try to get up, even though they're probably resting a lot of players. I just think it would be a shame if the Roosters missed the playoffs because they've been kind of not one of the, I don't want to say the form team of the competition, but they've been playing some really exciting footy. So I think that would be really awesome. So what that would mean is that we would have our week 1 picture. It's not in stone yet, but I'm going to go through what I think would happen in those week 1 playoff schedules because that's exciting. And it just makes me excited to think about the NRL playoffs, which are only 2 weeks away. Hell yeah. Which would mean week 1, which would be number 1 versus number 4. I don't know if it's week 1 because I don't know if they do the top 4 and then the second. I can't remember from last year, or the years before. But the first round, we'll just call it first round. Raiders versus Sharks is what I'm expecting because of the reasons that I just laid out there. Like I said, Sharks playing against the Dogs. I expect them to win. And with the Broncos facing the Storm and the Warriors behind on points differential and needing both those teams to lose, I just think it's more likely the Sharks win against the Dogs. But the Sharks, I expect to lose this against the Raiders in Canberra because the Sharks are the Sharks. What do I mean by that? Oh, it makes me joyous to bring this up because I've got a couple of Sharks fans in my life. But I wouldn't care if the Sharks won every single game of an NRL regular season. I just want to see it in the playoffs with this iteration. This has been the same team that have suffered some really bad losses in the playoffs, in past years. They last year won their first finals game in over 6 years against North Queensland. It was they got ahead by 24 points. It was quite boring. But then they lost to Penrith. So last year, I'm going to give them a pass because they faced Storm, won against the Cowboys, and then in the semis, lost to Penrith. No one was beating Penrith last year. That's fine. If you want to be one of those premiership teams, that's not fine, but I don't think the Sharks are a premiership team. The year before that, they lost to the Roosters, 13-12 at Shark Park. The Roosters had no one during this game. They got sin-binned. It was just an embarrassment of a loss. It was the fact that Nico Hines got the Dally M and he's not that guy, and I feel bad for him because he gets a lot of shit and because he's not at that stage of his career where he can actually take a team like that to the promised land. But if you want me to take you seriously, you have to be that dude, and I don't think he is. So I think the Sharks go out and out because I just expect that to happen. I expect in the offseason for the coach to probably get fired, even though I think Craig Fitzgibbon is a gun. I just think you need something different. It's the same squad. We've seen it again and again. The year before they lost to the Roosters, they lost to Rabbitohs. So they got kicked out by the Rabbitohs, and then they lost to North Queensland with Valentine Holmes field goal, and Latrell Mitchell just absolutely whooped them, and that 2022, something around like that. But yeah, the Sharks I expect, because I think Raiders are real. I don't think the Sharks are real. So that's what I am talking about. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's first week. So Sharks would go into the second week, and then they would play NRL playoffs. If you don't know how it works, let me just quickly give you a rundown. So the top 4 have 2 lives, essentially. So the top 4 would play 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. That's week 1. And then the bottom half of the 8, which is 5 versus 8, 6 versus 7, that's sudden death. And then the winner of those would play the losers of the top 4. And then the top, it's getting really complicated. But that's how it works. It's not 1, 8, 2, 7, 3 like in the NBA. So then that would mean, which this is a game that is 100% going to happen, Storm versus Bulldogs at Melbourne. Not much to say here. I think it's safe to bet your house on Melbourne here. I don't think the Dogs have it, even though 2 weeks ago they played there and that looked kind of competitive. I don't think it's going to be competitive at all. I really think the Storm are here to win this year. I think the Storm are here to... last week I wouldn't take much into it because they looked like they gave up and you didn't have... Pardon me, you didn't have your best side. Australian Open, baby. Yeah, I do this. Yeah, it's my job. Nah. Anyway. Whoa. So, Storm versus Bulldogs at Melbourne. I think that's pretty safe to say that the Storm will win. I was looking back at the Storm's playoff record at home, and because I had in my mind somewhere they'd never been beaten at home, but they had. Last time was against Canberra in 2022, which I remember watching, but I had to go back and look at the highlights. They lost to the Knights in 2013, and they lost somewhere in between them. But it's a pretty impressive record. It's like 4 losses at home, and when they're in the top 4 every year, it's like they're up there. So, but I just don't think with the Dogs, I think it's the same issue. They looked awful last week against Penrith. I mean, I know they won rather convincingly, but it just... You should be putting that team to the sword, and it looked like they were struggling. The first half, it was just messy. It was probably the worst game of the year that I've watched, if I'm being honest. It was terrible. It was a bad game. But, like, the same points, man. Same points as last week. We'll just quickly go over it. You give the keys of anything to a 19-year-old. I don't think it goes well. Connor Tracy as well. I just would love his positional play to be better. I think it needs to be better. I think it's a big problem in that club. I think Melbourne are going to expose them. I think Melbourne will absolutely kill them. I think with all their star players coming back, and not even just their star players, man, just the players who are coming back, like unsung heroes, Josh King, obviously Harry Grant, Xavier Coates, they're getting all of them back. Jerome Hughes, when you've got that spine, they've got the best spine in the tournament, in the comp, by far. They've got, when you've got Pappenhausen, Munster, Grant, and Hughes, like, stop it, man. That's elite. And with Melbourne, Hughes' injury is a big concern because last year it came out afterwards he did nothing in the grand final. He was injured. And he's been injured, so it's going to be really interesting. I'm going to be keeping an eye on what he does because when he's on, I mean, he's the best player in the NRL. He won the Dally M last year. He is. So, yeah, that's week 1. I'm going to save week 2 because I think that's getting a little what-if maybes. And then it would be Warriors versus Penrith at home. At the mighty Mount Smart. Yeah. What do you think, listener, is going to happen if you know anything about rugby league? I think the Penrith Panthers will kill us in that game. I think it's the worst draw the Warriors can possibly get. So I'm hoping to God that we get fourth, because at least we got 2 lives in. Penrith this year, like, the fact that they don't even care that they are at home, the fact they don't care what position they're at on the table, it's just, it's just crazy. They are a ruthless side that is going to, in my estimation, make at least the semis, if not the grand final, if not win it. So I think with all the experience, I think the Penrith Panthers will handily beat us at home in a heartbreaking fashion, and the Warriors will have to build for next year, which I am really excited about, by the way. With Metcalf coming back, with another year of James Fisher-Harris getting in under that system, I think I love our coach. This is the best coach we've ever had. He instills a very simple game plan of run it up fast, kick to the corners, and I really think that is just so refreshing as a rugby league purist to have your team play that way. For so many years, for my entire life, since I was a wee lad in the womb, the Warriors have been offloading, praying to God that something works. When it doesn't work, when you're up by 18 points with 10 minutes left, you still have to watch it and sweat it out. Just absolutely no structure. But the fact that Webster has made this team structured, and almost too structured, you'd have to say, is great. I love it. I think Metcalf, I am number one fan. Every week we've had a fan club meeting. I am Metcalf. I am a believer. I am everything about him. I think he's the most underrated player in the NRL when he's healthy. Even if he's leading the Tally M count, I think he's that good. I think he's a special talent. He's from Central Coast lad. I think you look at even when the Warriors were good, and we made the semi-finals and we got knocked out by the Broncos at Suncorp, which was 2 years ago now. And even last year when we were looking good, it wasn't just Sean Johnson. It was Luke Metcalf. When he was in the side, we were good, and when he wasn't, we were bad. Sound familiar? It does. That's exactly what this year's been. And then also with Mitch Barnett coming back, not only for the Warriors, but also for New South Wales, because he was really good in game 1, and we kind of lost that punch in games 2 and 3. Yes, I'm a New South Wales fan, if you didn't know. I've actually got I don't know if you can see it, right above my bed is Trent Hawkinson going over in the 2014 series. Just in case you thought that I was just a coolie who didn't care, I sleep underneath a mural of it. So, yeah, but I think the Warriors are building. I just think when you get injured like this, we're still building. I think next year all the pieces will come together. I really also like Chance at the back. I think Chance really tries hard. Nickel Clockstad. I think he's a really brave player, and I thought last week he's really good. Roger's really good. I think that will be our back 3 going forward. And I kind of want Tuapiki to turn into a winger, and be that replacement kind of back 3. Either that or Chance will have to go into the centres, which I like Rocco Berry, and I also like oh God, his name is, I've got his face. It will come to me. Pompey, Adam Pompey, thank you. I like those 2 in the centres. So we've kind of got a similar problem of what the Titans kind of have, of having players in each position and where do they fit. I don't think Chance is that good. He's pretty quiet when he's at centre, but he plays well for us when he's at fullback. I would understand the talent disparagement of just sometimes players aren't. It's not that they don't try, it's just they're not as exciting, not as game-breaking as maybe a Tuapiki would be. But I kind of like Tuapiki being that guy who can come in as injury cover, especially because he's so young. Another year with Halasima. That guy is an absolute dog, man. He is awesome. I'm worried he's young. He has a couple of clangers in his game. He makes 1 or 2 errors a game. But you would take it if he gives you 2 tries a game. I remember I actually did his debut. I was cutting packages, which means that for half-time and for full-time or for the studio shows during the week, there's a position that cuts highlights and cuts the players' highlights, and we're cutting most players on the pitch who are doing good. And when Halasima came on, he had 4 highlights in 3 minutes, and it was against the Dogs at a core stadium last year in round 24, I believe. And I started cutting it, and I was like, man, this new kid's really good. And then coming into this year, I was like, okay, yeah, I've got my eye on Halasima. He's been really good. And then I think his real breakout moment was that game winner against the Tigers at Campbelltown in round 10, maybe, somewhere around there. But yeah, another year with him under the belt, another year getting more healthy. I owe a big apology to Harris Tavita. He has been, I don't want to say a revelation, but he's been fantastic, especially defensively. Harris Tavita has been, I wasn't convinced with him as my 6 last year, especially with him missing all those penalty goals and things like that, but he is a really unique defender in the sense that he can really organize a line. It feels like he's getting to that level, so I'm keen for him and Metcalf in the halves, and then we'll see where it goes. But I think the Warriors get bounced in the first week, unfortunately, because it's Penrith and it's Nathan Cleary and it's Dylan Edwards, and even though he hasn't been playing that well, it's Liam Martin, it's Isaiah Yeo, it's Moses Leota, it's Penrith. Then that would actually mean that the Broncos versus Roosters would be the last match, and that, if it ends up being that, which I would expect it to be because of all the reasons I've said, that would be the game of the first round, you'd have to say, because they've split the season record. Bronx put 50 on them earlier this year, but they're 2 completely different teams at the moment, with the halves changing. But the Broncos only go as far as Ben Hunt and Reece Walsh can take them, unfortunately, this year because of Reynolds' injury. And I don't believe in the Broncos. I believed in them last year, and then they screwed up, and I think they're more last year's team rather than the 2023 Grand Final team. But that would be an absolute cracker. It would be at Suncorp. Roosters won last time they actually played them. That 50-point game was in like round 4 or something like that. But then, so the Roosters Broncos would be an absolute cracker if that turns out. The fullback battle would be sick. Reece Walsh versus James Tedesco. James Tedesco as well after last week, I believe, would have locked up the Dally M. Keep an eye on that. I can't really even think of anyone who would be even close to being in that conversation. You know, I think maybe a KO Weeks. I don't know. I don't think so. But that's I think too many people would take it away from KO Weeks. But on the Roosters, Teddy is really, really important to what they do. So, yeah, that was my NRL roundup. Hopefully it made some sense. It was probably a little bit convoluted in what I actually wanted to talk about. But, you know, improvement. We're getting better. I'm just going to have a glass of water. A sip of water, thanks. It's hard talking for this long. If you're still here, welcome. Thank you for listening. Just a little update on actually how it's all going. I'm trying to figure out how to make this as good as I can, and I think this preparation kind of makes me stop saying I called my mother, who listens. Shout out Ami. She said I swore a lot, which is completely fair because when I don't really know what to say, I kind of swear. But I've tried to pull it back a bit, and because taking notes is probably the way to do that, so that I actually know what I'm going to talk about rather than going, you know. So that would probably, that's our NRL roundup. I think what I'm going to do is next week, once we actually have the layout, man, I don't know why I'm talking so slow. Once we have the layout of what is actually going down, I will go through each matchup, and we'll actually try. You know what? We'll try to predict what happens. We'll do like a little tree of the entire NRL playoffs. And I might draw out a little diagram so it gets a little bit easier if you don't know what we're talking about. But what we're talking about now is massive. It is going to be a huge weekend in terms of the Rugby Championship. If you don't know what that is Australia, Argentina, New Zealand, and South Africa all playing it out for a competition called the Rugby Championship. It's awesome. It's a great tournament, and I wanted to go through, being that the Rugby Championship has never been tied, or each team has had one win each. South Africa's got one win. Australia's got a win. New Zealand's got a win. Argentina's got a win. It's never been tied after the second round. So this is what you could say being the most consequential weekend of rugby in the Southern Hemisphere in a while, maybe since, just coming straight to mind, the 2015 World Cup, where it was all four of those teams in the semis and finals. All Blacks won. Up the All Blacks. Up the ABs, baby. But we're going to start off with Australia versus Argentina. I'm going up to Townsville to do the replays on this game on Friday. I am super excited to go. I think it's going to be an awesome game. It's going to be hopefully packed out at sunny Townsville. It's going to be a Super Rugby camera setup, which means I'll probably we won't have as many toys as we did on the Lions. We'll still make it look great for your viewing pleasure. What I'm going to be doing is most probably cutting the highlights, which I'm really excited about. So when I get back, I'll be able to tell you guys exactly who played well, because what that means is I am getting a feed of everything. I can see all the cameras, and then I am literally selecting the best bits. I'm organizing and filing all those highlights into different, we call them playlists. And a playlist is just a selection of those clips of those vision that you can see. So if anyone has a good game, I am the guy to know, because I am going through every single hit up, every single tackle. I'm going through and I'm organizing it live, and then whoever has the best out of all of them, that's what we put to air. But I usually cut 12 to 14 different player packs on things that happen throughout the game, so I can actually tell you who was really good. It's a very, very, very big game for Argentina specifically. They have a chance here. If they can win, if they can steal both games in Australia, they have a chance to win their first ever Rugby Championship, because then they would only have to beat South Africa once, given other results. Which would be historic. It would be huge for Argentinian rugby. I wonder if they can do it. I don't know. They are going to, I assume, put the same tactics that they did against New Zealand, which also worked in the second game for South Africa's tactics on Australia. Slow down. What South Africa did to Australia, Argentina did to New Zealand. What Argentina did to New Zealand, they'll probably do to Australia, because South Africa did it. That makes more sense. And that is what we talked about last week, of just kicking high, getting a kick towards the sideline that travels 17 to 28 meters, landing in the perfect spot and just contesting the high ball, because Tom Wright is out again. I'm so excited. I'm talking too much. Australia has a big decision to make with Tom Wright being out, of who they put at fullback, because there's no Tom Wright and there's no Dylan Peach. Dylan Peach has a broken jaw. It's brutal. I don't know if you saw it. But what they did last week was they put Callaway there. And I really, really, really hope they put Max Jorgensen there, because I think he's ready. I think it's his time, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to do it. I think what you need to counteract that is a dangerous fullback who's really good in the air, and Jorgensen's really good in the air. So he plays there. He's played there for the Waratahs. I think he's a really good player. I love Max Jorgensen. I wonder whether they'll go with the more experience of Callaway, but that's going to be the biggest thing in the Rugby Championship this week is line speed and that bomb squad, because those two tactics have really defined this Rugby Championship thus far. So Argentina has an opportunity to really go out there. They are playing the first game in Townsville. I believe the second game, I don't remember where it is because I'm not doing it. I'm doing an NRL finals that weekend. But yes, I'm going to Townsville. I'm going to be able to be there. I'm going to be able to watch it. I'm so excited to do another international rugby. Haven't done one since the Lions. So yeah, very exciting stuff. For Australia, if they can beat Argentina as well, man, they can also steal this thing. Anyone can steal it, which is fantastic, but they haven't won a rugby championship since 2015. And if they really get some good form in the next couple of games, and New Zealand struggles against South Africa, that trophy that's been on New Zealand soil since 2001 called the Bledisloe Cup, Australia will be looking at that going, we could get both games there. I think one of them's at Eden Park again this year, which is a big tall ask, but we're going to find out because this weekend there have been a lot of big games of rugby this year. There's been Ireland versus France earlier in the year was a massive game. It was at the time, I believe, 1 and 2 in the world. I would say the Lions versus Australia, game 2 in Melbourne, which I was there for, which was a career highlight. That was probably the biggest game thus far. But everyone has had this game on September the 6th at Eden Park circled, man. This is a humongous game. This is when Wayne Smith, one of the most legendary coaches on the coaching staff, comes in for one game, it's a big game. And this is a big one. 88 years since the Springboks won at Eden Park. All Blacks have not lost at Eden Park since the try from the end of the world in 1994 against France. We drew the 2017 series in Game 3 against the Lions, but we didn't lose that. So it's a fortress, man. It's an absolute fortress. And this is the time. This is really going to be the distinguisher of eras, this game. I know that sounds epic and cheesy, but I'll explain why. And that's because South Africa really has a chance. And I want you to listen to this if you're a Kiwi. South Africa has a real chance of being the greatest team of all time. And I think it comes down to this. I think this is the legacy kicker of no. We run this ship now. Because as an All Blacks fan, you'd have to say 2011 to 2015 was the greatest run of. I'm not talking about the Invincibles as well, of like 1937. Like, come on, who knows? No one really knows too much about that team. But in modern day rugby, you'd have to say the first team to win back-to-back World Cups, World Rugby Players of the Years, left, right, and center. South Africa has been doing the exact same thing since 2019. 2 World Cups, World Rugby Player of the Year, Peter Stiff du Toit, 2 times. Rugby Championship, only Rugby Championships. They lost last year of the Rugby Championship because the All Blacks won it, but I mean, in 2015, Australia won it, so we weren't actually, as that kicker. But the All Blacks always have that one record, that one game where it's like, nah, okay, when shit gets serious, we're the team. You know what I mean? You're not beating us here. We've beaten them at Ellis Park, but they can't beat us here. That's That's the distinguisher of it's the best rivalry in international rugby. And this game is the first one where the All Blacks are looking really quite vulnerable going into Eden Park, and South Africa will be coming, man. This is a massive, massive game for the All Blacks. We are injury-ridden. We look down and out, and when we've looked down and out in before times, we've risen above. I mean, even the fact that we got to the last World Cup final, that we lost to South Africa, you would have to say coming in, there was no chance of that. But this is Scott Robertson's biggest test. I trust that guy because, I mean, when you go 6-7 titles with the Crusaders on the bounce, how can you not trust him? Right? Like, it just all makes sense that you'd have to think the All Blacks would be able to do it. But there are so many questions. I'm refreshing the page. I don't know when the squads are announced, but there's so much to dissect about the squad selection. Who's going to be our halfbacks? Cordes Radama was walking around with like a broken rib last week. He is not been made out. I really hope they go Caleb Clark on the wing. They brought in Lester Ganuku, who I think is, one of Scott Robertson's favourites because he was a Crusader for so long during his time as a coach. I just think we really need someone in the air to catch the ball, and I really think we need some toughness during this game. So it's going to be tough to see where they go. I'm interested to see if they pick Brodie McAllister coming off the bench, because last week you'd have to say the technical aspect of Samisoni Takiaho's game was lacking, and it hurt us. That line out towards the end, who knows what would have happened if it was a little bit different. He's a devastating ball runner, but maybe for a game like this you would want more scrummaging action and line out action over the X Factor, which I think the All Blacks have been caught out a little bit. I am hoping that we go Beauden Barrett at 10, which I assume we would be. This is one of those games that both teams are going to not be looking towards the future of the World Cups or anything like that. This is the game where you pick what you believe as your best squad. But the only problem with that is our halfbacks are really missing because we don't have Roygaard, we don't have Hotham, who I think is a little bit too early to be there, to be honest, but Cordes Radama, if he's not there, then we're looking at Finlay Christie, and they've brought in Xavier Rowe, who, I mean, if Cordes Radama's not there and it's Xavier Rowe and far out. Who's the other bloke? There's one halfback I'm missing there. My apologies, but that's my point. is that we're going to be throwing someone in the fire there, and it's going to be a hot fire coming off the bench because if not, Finlay Christie's going to have to do a really big job. And if he goes down early, then all of a sudden you've got a halfback who hasn't played international rugby playing in the biggest game of the year. It's going to be scary, man. It's going to be real scary. So it's going to be interesting. I really hope we win it. I really, really hope we win it. It's international rugby. We're back. What an absolute great time. So I think that's when I'm gonna stop. I think I've talked enough crap. Thank you for listening. We're trying to get better. I think that was a little bit more structured. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. Hopefully you've got some good points out of it. Hopefully the NRL section wasn't too confusing. But thank you for listening to Behind the Replay episode 3. I don't know if we're going to keep doing episodes. I don't know what we're doing, but it's fun. I really like talking about these things that make me excited. I am really enjoying doing this. And that was one take, so I don't have to edit. So I'm even happier. But have a great day. Look out for those games. It's going to be really cool. Also look out for the US Open. The US Open is coming into the round of 16. I haven't actually been watching too many because it starts at 2 a.m. I've been keeping my eye on it. It seems like the big players are all still there. So until it gets really interesting, which I would say the quarters, which start tomorrow, I'm going to maybe talk about it on my next episode, and I'm going to try watch a little bit more of it so I can bring you the news, so I can keep you up to date, and so you can stay up to date and see what happens behind the replay. How smooth was that? Thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic day. Peace and love. Catch up.